Welcome to the Automation Zone. In today's tutorial, we'll learn what is a function and how to use a function in Python. A function in any programming language will help in the reusability of a code. In the given example, if you see, line number 5, line number 8 and line number 11 are exactly the same. Now in this case, if I had to make changes, I would have to make changes in all of these three places. This would become even more complex with the number of lines increasing in my code. A good way to handle this is by using functions. We'll now create a function to make our code more reusable. So to create a function, use a keyword called def that stands for definition. Then you give your function name. Here I'm going to give the name as say hello world. Now it is good that you give the function name as a verb, but it is not mandatory. After that you end it with a parenthesis and then a colon. Now the code that you want inside of your function, you have to paste it below it with a tab. This tab is also called as your indentation. You can have one line of code or more than one line of code. Just make sure that all the lines of code need to follow the exact same indentations. So if you have 4 white spaces, you have 4 white spaces for all. If you have one white space, you have one white space for all. So here I need only one line of code. And in this way, I have created a function called say hello world, which has one line called print hello world. I can then copy this piece of function and paste it wherever I want to use it with your brackets or your parentheses. I'll then go ahead and copy this wherever I want to use it. Now note that you are getting an error. You're getting an error because you have called the function before creating it. So just make sure that you are creating the function first and then calling it later. Now when I execute the function, you can see wherever I have called it, it prints a code inside of it, or it executes a code which is inside of my function. Now if I have to make changes, I can make change in only one location, and that change will be reflected across all places of my code. In this way, I have achieved reusability inside of my program. I can also pass arguments to my function as well. To do that, you have to go to your function and give parameters to it. Now currently this has no parameter. You can give any variable of your choice. Let me give a simple variable called variable a. Now let me go to line number 8 where I've called the function and pass in a value called Tom. In the same way, I'm going to line number 11 and passing in another name called as Jack. And in line number 14, I'll pass in Jill. So when the function is called from line number 8, Tom is passed to the variable a. Therefore, I can use this variable a, which is now a string, by just saying a plus says hello world. So this is going to be Tom says hello world. When I call the function from line number 11 is going to be Jack says hello world, and line number 14 Jill says hello world. So when you execute it, you can see the exact same thing here. Tom says hello world, Jack says hello world, and Jill says hello world. We'll now look at a better example to show this exact same thing. Let me delete this code. We will now create a function to add any given number with 10. So to add a function, use the keyword def, then give the function name. Here I'm going to give the function name as add 10 parentheses. Let me pass in a variable called num followed by a colon, and the line in the function would be print num plus 10. I'll now go ahead and call my function called add 10 and let me pass the value 5. Upon execution, you will see the output has 15. We will now add another parameter to a function called add10. To do that, simply put a comma and give your next parameter. Let it be num2. Let the first parameter be changed to num1. You can give 2 or more than 2, just give a comma and keep adding parameters. That will work just fine. Let me change the function name to just add, and inside print let me do num1 plus num2. Therefore, now I can call the add function like it was supposed to by passing in 2 arguments, which is 5 and let me put 3. The first argument is passed to my first parameter and the second argument is passed to the second parameter, I eventually get 5 plus 3 and the output using the print command will be the number 8. Now note that the function add does not return any value. If I were to assign a variable a to the function add and if I were to print the value of a, you would see that the value of a is basically none because add here does not return any value. Therefore, variable a still contains none or nothing at all. In order to return a value, simply type the particular keyword called return and pass the value which you wish to return after this keyword. So if I pass the value 100 and now if I run it, you will see I get the output as 100. What is happening is when I call the function add, it basically returns for me the value 100. So I've called the function here, it returns 100. 100 is assigned to the variable a and a is printed right here. Now in this case, instead of returning 100, I can just return the value which I require, which is num1 plus num2. And upon execution, you will see the same output has 8. So guys, when do you return a value and when do you print a value? You print a value when you want to display something to the user, for example during a logging time, and the value is not required in the future. But if a value is required going further on in your code, it is better that you return it. Example, here in this case the addition of 5 and 3 is the value 8. And if I require the value 8, example, I'm saving a new variable called b and I'm doing that by the addition of the number 10 and the output of the previous addition. So I'm putting the value a here like this. So in this case, it is important that addition returns a particular number, stores it, and we store it in a variable called a. This variable a is then used further on in our code. The last topic for today is the default value. Let us take our previous example where I'm adding two values and let me print it out. Now we are passing in two arguments. If I pass only one argument, the program is going to fail because my function accepts two parameters. When I run it, you will see an error. Now we can avoid this by specifying the second parameter as a default value by giving an equal to and a value of your choice. For now, let me set it to the value 10. So since a second parameter has a default value, it is not mandatory for me to pass in a second argument. Like this, I can leave it blank. If I leave it blank, the value of number 2 will be set to 10. I get the output as 15, that is 5 plus 10. Now note that if you give a second value, then this value which you have passed in while calling your method will override the default value and num2 will not be 10 but it will be 3. When you run it, you will see the output has the number 8. Also note that your default parameter cannot be before a normal parameter. What I mean is, if you had a default parameter which is before a normal parameter like this and you are passing only one argument, Python will not know where to assign this particular argument, to the default one or to the normal one. So it is going to throw you an error. And one last thing before we leave for today is this, that please do not assign a parameter a mutable value like a list, because it's a very complicated topic. This is going to throw you an error later on during our code and it'll be pretty hard for you to debug. So do not have such kinds of assignments. That is it for this tutorial on functions. If you have any questions in functions, do comment below, I'll help you out. If you like my tutorial on Python, do show your support by liking and sharing this video and subscribing to my channel. Thank you all for watching.